Totally fine. Okay, there we go. Looks like we're live on Facebook. So welcome to everyone who's joining in. Let's see if I can see it.
Good morning, everyone.
Yeah. No, I like. Facebook just said, see fewer notifications for Peace of Christ Church. No, I want to see them all.
I don't think so. I forgot my body of Christ, so I'll be right back.
Ooh. Yeah, speaking of the body, while we are welcoming everybody on, because we do have some announcements to share, feel free to drop your communion elements of choice this morning in the comments. We can see what everyone's taking. What do y'all have going on over here today? A pecan? Is that a pecan?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Oh, a blackberry, a quiche, and some intense dark chocolate. Not just dark, intense. Do you got anything over there, Jonathan? Oh, you're probably going to be getting ready to sing.
Well, I've got Propel water that I mixed in a bottle, and then I've got this nice little chocolate peanut butter protein bar that I'm.
Nice. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Very nice. Hi to people signing on. Hello, Clark, who has black coffee and a banana nut muffin. And hi to Tori, Sarah. Oh, my goodness. So many people signing on. I'm going to share some announcements really quickly as we wait. Oh, Taco Cabana. Okay. First announcement. If you are able, remember you can always donate to the mission of this community. This is how we make the world go round within our little world. We're completely funded by the people for the people. So check out that donate box and feel free to sign up to become a monthly donor if you are able. Like I said, anything, like I always say, any amount is an appreciated amount. Honestly, it all adds up, and we are so grateful. So let's see. Hello, people signing on. Okay, I get so distracted. I need to not look at the comments. I wanted to share something really super fun. There's not very many people on yet, so I'm going to wait and start sharing announcements really quickly. Okay. Reminder, sign up for our weekly updates. All our announcements, the happenings of the church, the life of the church, we put it in an email once a week, and you don't even have to read it. It's like all pictures. It's the simplest email ever to receive, but it keeps you informed. And if you are not on that list and want to be, please reach out to me or Matthew, or just put it in the comments and we'll take notes and reach out to you about that. One of our announcements is that we are forming our first ever baptism cohort for interested children at Peace. If you are interested in learning more, please reach out to me or Matthew. Actually, reach out to Matthew or me, but primarily Matthew. This is for kids who are able to write and read, so ages 7 and up. But if you have a kid who you think might be interested, check out those emails, because we've linked an entire document behind our whole concept of why and how we do the baptism journey at Peace. And it is extremely thoughtful, and it's really a spiritual formation experience. So the deadline for considering whether or not you'll have a kid jump in on that is February 7th. So there's some time to learn about it, but reach out to Matt and get on those emails where you can read more. Okay. I lost my notes. Here they are. Another announcement is that the Braiding Sweetgrass Winter Book Group will be continuing in just a few weeks, same day, February 7th. You can still sign up for that. Y'all, this is probably the most beautiful book I've ever read. It's just beautiful. It will change you from the inside out. So even if you can't join for the meeting, highly recommend you check out that book. Okay, here's the super fun announcement, people. Our very own Dr. David Hawley has released his next book. It's called Changing Your Mind Without Losing Your Faith. It is up on Amazon. Support him, send him a congratulations. through Joyce, who tends to be their mouthpiece on Facebook, or you could send him an email, reach out to me if you need that information. But the best thing you can do is go on Amazon and purchase that book to support him. So thank you, David, for your work in the world. We're so excited. I'm not sure that they're online because I think they're out of town this weekend, but hopefully they see this later. Okay, there's a link to that. Okay, my final announcement is that our Metamorphosis Round 2 group is up. The application for that is up. This is a very highly recommended for anybody who needs extra support, specifically in the process of deconstructing faith and rebuilding it, which is a lot of people in our community. So check that out, see if it's for you, see if you can make all the dates, and sign up. That's all I got.
I'll add two quick ones. Number one, I'm sorry we're not in person this morning. That was our hope, and we've been planning for it for months. And then we're in the midst of a COVID surge right now. So we shifted, we pivoted. We're trying to, as Jesus said, be as wise as serpents. So we're doing our best here to navigate. And I would have thought 2 years into this thing, it would be easier. I would be more adept at navigating a pandemic, but I still feel like, wow, we're winging it. We're doing the best we can. All of life is improv, and this is no different here. The second announcement is for youth and parents of youth. We have a game night led by Joyce this Friday. So it's the youth, it's the tweens and teens, and it's at my place beginning at 6:30, at 6:30 to 8:30. There'll be games and snacks. So look for the link for that. I think it's going to get posted in the chat, but also it was in, Joyce has been posting it around, and it should have been in our weekly newsletter as well. But if you need that, you can reach out and get it. At this time, we will do our regular chiming of the hour to mark our sacred time and space together this morning.
Okay, you can kick everyone out if David. All right, there we go. I had to change the sound so it gets echoey if other people are in the stream. I want us to chime the hour and have this moment as usual for a centering space as we move into this gathering together. I want to acknowledge the death of an incredible teacher, Zen Buddhist monk Thich Nhat Hanh, who I believe died yesterday, and I'm going to be honoring him and sharing more of his work throughout the service. I meant to actually put this up somewhere and I forgot, but one of my favorite sort of mantras from him has helped me in times of anxiety and fear, and I'd like to share it with you as we chime the hour. And it is simply, I have arrived, I am home, in the here and the now, in the ultimate I dwell. I probably got that wrong because I don't have it in front of me, but this is an invitation to be in the present moment.
Wolf and lamb are dancing, safe and sound. They do not fear the fear anymore. Son of Man surrounds them, building with his hands the kingdom of what's new and what's before. The kingdom of what's new and was before. The whole earth will be brimming with knowing God alive. Glorious reunion of dead things come to life. The requiem of darkness, our home once and for all. Here at the end of every curse, the beautiful reverse. The calf and cub are feasting, full of joy. As brothers they shall live forevermore. The Son of God sustains them, filling with each breath the kingdom of what's new and was before. The kingdom of what's new and was before. The whole earth will be brimming with knowing God alive. Glorious reunion of dead things come to life. The requiem of darkness, our home once and for all. Here at the end of every curse, the beautiful reverse. Love of God, joy, delight, ocean deep, ocean wide. Justice flows, the poor are fed, the Prince of Peace, our daily bread. Love of God, joy, delight, ocean deep, ocean wide. Justice flows, the poor are fed, the Prince of Peace, our daily bread. Whole earth will be brimming with knowing God alive. A glorious reunion of dead things come to life. The requiem of darkness, our home once and for all. Here at the end of every curse, the whole earth will be brimming with knowing God alive. Glorious reunion of dead things come to life. The requiem of darkness, our home once and for all. Here at the end of every curse. Here at the end of every curse. Here at the end of every curse, the beautiful reverse. Beautiful
Hi, thank you, Jonathan. That was really great. It's time for our kids' sermon. So I'm assuming you're all watching me. Good morning. Happy Sunday. My name is Erin. There's a couple of letters missing in my name here. One is an R, that's in my first name, and then another Z. I actually have 2 Z's in my last name. Well, today I'm going to talk to you guys about something that I think about from time to time, and that is, why do we do this? Do you all ever wonder why we do this? Why do we get together online and in person on Sundays? Did you know that not everyone in the world does this on Sundays? So why do we do it? Well, it's not because we have to. There's no rule that says that if you believe in God, you have to go to church. It's true. It's no rule. The truth is, we do it because we want to. I'm going to read you a super short story from my son Jackson's first Bible. Jackson is 18 years old now, super old. And I bought this book for him when he was just 3 years old. This is a abbreviated story about what some call the first church, but really there had already been people meeting as a church for a long time before this. But this was something that people who believed in Jesus started to do a long time ago. So it says, the new believers studied with the disciples. They learned many things about God and God's plans. They prayed together. They sang songs. Get this straight. Sang songs and praised God. My favorite part. They ate meals and celebrated the Lord's Supper together. The Lord's Supper is what we call communion. They shared everything they had with each other. And God added more and more believers to their church every day. That sounds like us, doesn't it? We learn and we study together. We pray together. We sing songs and praise God together. And we take communion and eat meals together. You know what else we do? We share what we have with each other. And our church keeps growing. Lots of people have joined us over the past couple of years. And it's awesome. So if we do this because we want to, why do we want to? Well, one of the reasons I want to be a part of a church is because I feel a sense of belonging. Do you feel that? Do you feel known and loved by your friends here? I hope that you do. But this isn't like belonging to a group where everyone is the same. No, this is different. To me, it's like an extended family. Do you know what extended family is? Well, I'm sure you know what and who your family is, right? That's obvious. It's your mom and your dad, your brothers and your sisters, and even your pets. And your extended family is your grandparents, your aunts and uncles, and your cousins. And here in our church, we are each other's extended family too. So here's what I want you to think about. You belong here. You're not like anyone else. And that is what helps make our church so special. We do this on Sundays and sometimes throughout the week because we belong to each other. We are a family. And when one of us is hurting or needs something, we care for that person and share what we have to help meet their needs. And that is really special. That is just one way that we can know and share God's love. So here's what I want you to know and remember. You are a super important part of our church, our family. And I'm so glad you're here. So I hope you have a great week. And remember that you have an extended family that loves you.
Thanks, Erin. That's such a sweet message and I think helpful for all of us. But thank you so much for loving our kids so well this morning with that. I actually don't have a meditation this morning because I wanted to honor the death of the monk, Zen Buddhist monk Thich Nhat Hanh, who died yesterday. And I decided to pull an excerpt from. This is really the only book I actually own by Thich Nhat Hanh, but it has been really, really helpful for me over the years, especially because fear is something that I struggle with a lot. But I actually feel like this would be a great book for anybody during these times, specifically in the context of this ongoing pandemic. So check this out. But I'm going to read a little excerpt from this today, because when I think about communion, I think about the oneness of all things and the oneness of creator and creation. And when I think about this great teacher and peace activist who died, but who would say he's still here in so many ways if we're paying attention, but also just genuinely like the teachings that he teaches, it offers so much comfort. So I'm going to share a very small, actually it's not that small, it's like 4 paragraphs excerpt for our meditation, and then invite us to move into the liturgy together. This is from an excerpt. A part of the book is called Taking Mindfulness with Us. And of course, mindfulness is an actual practice, is an actual Buddhist practice of learning to live in the present moment and practicing presence. But let me read this for you now. Like many of us, you may be in the habit of carrying your cell phone around everywhere you go. You think you can't live without your cell phone. You're fearful when you forget and leave your phone at home. You worry when your battery starts to run low. When we practice mindfulness, we can take our practice with us wherever we go, just like you take your phone with you. But mindfulness doesn't take up any space or make your bags any heavier, and your batteries never run down. Whenever you go somewhere, your practice goes with you. Our daily lives need to have a spiritual dimension to help us develop our capacity for taking good care of our pain and our fear, as well as our happiness. If we practice mindfulness, we always have a place to be when we are afraid. If we nourish and cultivate our mindfulness practice, it will become vigorous and robust. Everywhere we go, we will have our practice. So we will have confidence, more confidence than our cell phones can bring us. We can stand firm through any difficulty. Everyone has the seed of mindfulness inside. Everyone is capable of breathing mindfully, even very young people. Everyone can drink their tea mindfully. Everyone can take a step in mindfulness. When you're inhabited by the energy of mindfulness, you speak, eat, and walk in mindfulness. The energy of mindfulness is alive in you. And we have a colleague who we're very close to named Dr. David Zuniga, who's a Zen Buddhist priest here in Austin. He's spoken with our church many times, showing us this connection between so many of our beliefs in the Christian tradition and the beliefs of Buddhism. And when I read all of this, I think, of course, can anyone guess, of Imago Dei? I think of God in us and how that knowledge of God in us enables us to do so much more than we ever thought we were capable of, just that simple awareness. And so with all of this in mind, I want to invite us now to read our communion liturgy together. See, are we going to bring the others? There we go. Want to make sure I have someone who can respond. And if you're at home, you can respond or read the whole thing. This is a new communion liturgy that Matthew, Fran, and I have written together for many, many months. Lots of thought and theology and faith and wrestling put into these. So we hope you enjoy these words and praying them with us. God is within you.
God is also
within you.
Lift up your hearts.
We join in the beloved community.
Let us give thanks for the blessing of life.
Together we raise our voices in gratitude.
May our fierce attention to the here and now strengthen our awareness of Imago Dei. And in community, may this power grow, changing the world one mindful breath at a time. As we reflect on these thoughts and the power of Christ's presence in our lives, I invite you to take your elements.
Good, huh?
Great is the mystery of faith.
Christ has risen from death, and we join
join
him
him
bringing
in
heaven
bringing
to
heaven to
earth.
earth.
To earth. The empty field, the wounded healed, the broken back together, the poor are blessed, the weary rest. We will dance forever. The blinded see, the chained are free, the doubtful now believer, the outcast known, the open home. You are my Redeemer. Behold, behold, behold what love can do. Behold, behold, you're making all things new. The lost returned, the voiceless heard, the mourner now rejoicing, the mountains shake, the world awake, creation all composing, the sad untrue, the earth renewed, the song has found its singer, the darkness light, the dead alive. You are my Redeemer. Behold, behold, behold what love can do. Behold, behold, you're making all things new. Behold, behold, behold what love can do. Behold, behold, you're making all things new. Yeah. You are making all things new. You are making all things new. You are making all things new. Behold, behold, behold what love can do. Behold, behold, you're making all things new. Behold, behold, behold what love can do. Behold, behold, you're making all things new. You're making all
Thank you, Jonathan. That was awesome. I'm just so grateful. So much energy brought to it's hard to bring energy online. So
Yeah.
it's really great. Well, hello, Matthew.
Why, hello, Reverend Aurelia.
I actually asked Matt this morning if I could interview him. We don't have a Deeper Looks, and we were supposed to be in person today. This was a quick pivot online thanks to Omicron. But I thought it would be really cool to interview you in this little space because I think a term Fran coined was multivocational. A lot of people have heard the phrase bivocational. A lot of pastors are bivocational because, the community can't necessarily afford to pay for, full-time jobs if you're a small church. And we are a small church and we have 3 pastors. So all 3 of us are part-time, and all 3 of us are multi-vocational, doing a lot of other side gigs throughout the week. So I thought it'd be fun to highlight some of the things that you're up to day in, day out. So maybe you can just share about a few of those things, and I'll give you nudges if you forget anything.
Yeah, you didn't tell me all the interview questions, so we'll see what comes up. But I do wear many hats. Obviously, I'm a partner to Heather and dad to Haddon and Ellis and pastor here in the community, but also I'm 2/3 or so through a Master of Social Work degree at UT Austin. Getting through that this past week, I just began a full-time field work course load at the VA in Austin, working in their PTSD clinic and their mental health clinic. So I'm doing that full time through May, and taking some classes as well. This is part of my degree. And then, as you all know, I'm a chaplain in the Air Force Reserve, and that means I'm gone at least 1 weekend a month. When we're lucky, it falls on the first weekend of the month, and I don't have to miss meeting with you all. I just miss that fill your soul time, which is important.
Feels like a metaphor for ministry sometimes.
Right, exactly. Sometimes it falls on one of the other weekends, and so I'm not here because of that. And up until recently, I was also carrying a pager overnight for Baylor Scott and White Hospital as an on-call chaplain. So if there was a death or something like that, I would get paged to go into the hospital. And just like Aurelia is saying, this is how I'm kind of weaving together a vocation, a career, to try to hold everything together, make ends meet, and do work that I feel called to do in the world.
Yeah. Feel free to ask a question. We won't be in this little conversation moment long, but thanks for in the comments if y'all want. Thanks for sharing, Matt. And let me fill in some gaps for you. So Matthew is gone once every month for the Air Force, but he didn't mention that he's usually gone almost the whole month of August, or at some point in the summer as well, including on top of that a more longer deployment than usual earlier this fall. Do you want to share about any of that?
Yeah, I'll be happy to. So yeah, I was activated kind of mid-August all the way up until the beginning of November. And it was because of, I want to be careful how I say this, but we'll just say the Afghanistan withdrawal. Since I'm an officer in the United States military, I cannot be critical of elected officials. So and so I was fortunate, though, to get to go and work at the base where a lot of the refugees were being airlifted to in New Jersey, and work with the air crew and all the support staff that were doing that work. It was incredibly meaningful. So this was one of the longer times I was activated, for about 70 days. And I felt very supported by you all, and Heather and the kids felt very supported as well.
Yeah. And I believe you have, are you allowed to talk about your special award?
It's a little nerdy to explain. So one of the third quarter of last year, I was named Company Grade Officer of the Year for my wing, CGO, Company Grade Officer. These are all the lieutenants and the captains. And then next month, I go up for Officer of the Year, or Company Grade Officer of 2021. So fingers crossed on that. And this month, actually tomorrow, a board meets in Big Blue in the big Air Force to determine if they're going to promote me to major or make me stay a captain. So that's kind of a big deal. So I've been working toward that for 6 or 7 years now.
Wow, that is a big deal. Congratulations. That's awesome. Oh, look, I finally got my communion. Thank you. Okay, so here's a question. What does a day have? That's a lot of stuff. Okay, let's review. You're in a master's program, you're a pastor of this church, you're chaplain / officer in the Air Force Reserves, and you recently were even doing on-call chaplaincy for Baylor Scott and White. Plus, you support, your family in various ways through the activities they do. So what does a day in your life look like? How do you get all that done?
I know it's hard. And Aurelia, you're being so gracious because you know how forgetful I am, and I have to write everything down, and I have to be prodded multiple times to be like, hey, don't forget I sent you this email. So that's it. I don't always balance it so gracefully or so skillfully. I do a lot of apologizing, but I am often wearing multiple hats throughout the day, and doing my best to attend to kind of what's most pressing at that moment. And like so many others here, I'm still having to learn how to set boundaries and say no to stuff, which is why I had to let go of carrying the pager for Baylor Scott and White toward the end of last year's. Yes, the extra income is nice and needed, but I can't sacrifice my health and my family for that. What does it gain a person, to like make all this, to do all this good work, but they lose their health and they lose their family. So that's the best I can answer that.
Yeah.
Maybe not
Oh
so
my
skillfully,
gosh.
but I'm trying.
Yeah. Okay. I know we cannot be on here too much longer because you have a whole sermon. How long is your sermon? And then I'll determine how many more questions I have. Just kidding. Okay. Thank you for sharing. We have some thoughtful comments. Okay. I know Tammy said not to share this and to answer it later, but you're preaching later. So I feel that you see that question, Matt? I feel that you've thought about this so much that you could probably speak on it briefly. Yeah.
Right. So, I mean, I'm in the role of a chaplain. I'm a non-combatant. I would hold up my ID card and show you that I'm a certain Geneva category of military member, meaning I can't carry a gun, I can't hold a gun, I don't engage in warfare. That's one of the ways I navigate that, but it is a tension. I mean, the Air Force breaks things and kills people. Like, this is one of their unofficial mottos. You'll hear people say, we break things and we kill people. And it's true. So how do I hold that in tension? Well, a few ways. All of that's going to happen whether or not I'm there. So I would like somebody who is trying to engage these issues thoughtfully to be there. I want to be there. I want to be there to be there for troops when they wrestle with that, and they're gaining awareness of some of this stuff. Also, I am a progressive Christian. And so the reality is there aren't many progressive chaplains in the military. If I were to leave, there are 50 people waiting to fill my spot whose theology is pretty far right of mine. So I'm kind of squatting on my on my slot in the military and holding it, as a progressive pastor, because there are people in my wing and in the military that will come to me with issues that they couldn't go to many chaplains with. And I'm not trying to be disparaging of my colleagues, but they know they're going to hear something different from me than from others.
Yeah, so. That's such a complicated question, and we could have a whole hour just talking about that. Yeah. But thanks for sharing. Great response. My sister's an Air Force veteran, and my brother-in-law as well. That's how they met. But I think about how so many young people join the military because of lack of resources to do anything else, or just the need to get out of the context they're in. It makes me so grateful and excited to know people like you are there to support them as they navigate the realities of what they signed up for. Not always knowing, you can't know until you're in there.
Right.
In the context.
Right.
Thank you for sharing. Do you have a favorite liberation theology book if you had to pick one?
You could just, I think I like just kind of reading the basic texts of Gustavo Gutierrez or James Cone or some of these very early kind of texts on different streams of liberation theology.
Yeah.
That's a great place to start. God's preferential option for the poor. I mean, just kind of, amazing stuff.
Absolutely. Thanks for sharing. I'm actually reading a book that's not out yet because I'm offering an endorsement, and it's called The God Who Riots. It's available for pre-order, and it is, I'm thinking, like a nice accessible addition to liberation theology books for everyday people. Okay, final question. What's given you joy this year? What are you doing?
What's given me joy?
Or not doing?
I am trying really hard to build my little tiny suburban homestead and live simply and return to the basics of compost and community, because the world feels so freaking crazy and out of hand. And it's like, I can't control any of that stuff, but I can nourish a community and I can nourish the soil and try to grow some stuff. And that's the best I've got.
Yes. You know what book you would really love?
Braiding Sweetgrass. I know. I need to read it.
You would love that to accompany you on this journey. Well, thank you so much for sharing so off the cuff. I just get excited because I get to see what you're up to all the time. And I think I realize with our community, people don't always realize what all is happening. So just like everyone else we do a deeper look with, I'm glad we got to do that with you today.
Thank you.
So we're gonna hop off the screen now and move on. Thanks, Matt.
Thank you.
All right, howdy. Thank you, Reverend Matthew. Just blown away by all that you do, and congratulations for all the accolades. And yet you still find time to come out on the porch over here and share a taco or hang out at Rudy's with us. So blown away by it. Really appreciate it. I'm Reverend Christopher Lushper, and we've got Eva that popped in there. Y'all, there you go. And we've got Dr. Deaconess Mommy Girl over here, Tiffany. And Jackson, we have a Jackson like Aaron at 18 as well. And Lannon 17, and our baby boy Ezzy, forever Ezzy, which Reverend Jonathan just so filled my spirit with your passion and exuberance and enthusiasm, and indeed at the end of every curse, looking forward to that time and making all things new and seeing what love can do. And nothing has stretched our imagination like Ezzy passing away. And as we get into the reading here, it is a long reading. I'll be brief here, or try to, but I did want to just share that that verse that we're asked to read here, 1 Corinthians 12, 4-27, the verse right before it, number 3 says that, and no one can say Jesus is Lord except by the Holy Spirit. That there is this one Spirit, and we'll get into the reading. But this one Spirit that's wild, that's Jesus describes as like the wind, that we don't know where the wind is coming from or where it's going. And I can forget that wildness, and I lose, and I don't have as great imagination. And those songs, especially this morning in this verse, getting into the Spirit, the different gifts and the members of one body, and just trying to imagine the billions of people we have on the earth right now and the billions that have come before, and how can those that are believers be in one body and then have the many members, and how does that even fit together? But stretching that imagination that Isaiah says that, the Lord says, my ways are higher than your ways. They're far beyond what you can even imagine. And sometimes I think I have a pretty good imagination. I know baby girl has a good imagination, but he says far beyond what I could even imagine. And we watching the series that Tiff brought back to us, the Once Upon a Time, and these curses that come in, and just as these big clouds of various colors come in and wash over us as a curse. But one day, like that it helps me with my imagination to think that this curse is going to end, and He will make all things new. That Christ will return, and that one Spirit that guides us. And then lastly, is get into the word further, is that one of our professors has really helped me to understand that this episode of where we are here in the created church, all these episodes have come before to display God's kingdom on earth have resulted in failure. The church is destined to fail. I needed to hold on to that. I need to remember that and let go of trying to make things just work exactly right here. That I can imagine a time where he's going to make all things new, that I can respect the wildness and the movements of the Spirit as we get into the word here. And I hope that blesses you as it has me. All right. Verses 4 through 27 of 1 Corinthians 12. Now there are different gifts, but the same Spirit. But there are different ministries, but the same Lord. And there are different results, but the same God who produces all of them in every one. To each person, the manifestation of the Spirit is given for the benefit of all. For one person is given through the Spirit the message of wisdom, and another the message of knowledge according to the same Spirit, and to another faith by the same Spirit, and to another gifts of healing by the one Spirit, to another performance of miracles, to another prophecy, to another discernment of spirits, to another different kinds of tongues, and to another the interpretation of tongues. It is one and the same Spirit, distributing as he decides to each person who produces all these things. For just as the body is one and yet has many members, and all the members of the body, though many, are one body, so too is Christ. For in one Spirit we are all baptized into one body, whether Jews or Greeks or slaves or free, we all made to drink the one Spirit. For in fact, the body is not a single member, but many. If the foot says, since I have not a hand, I am not part of the body, so does not lose its membership in the body because of that. And if the ear says, since I am an eye, not an eye, I am not part of the body, it does not lose its membership in the body because of that. If the whole body were an eye, what part would do the hearing? If the whole were an ear, what part would exercise the sense of smell? But as a matter of fact, God has placed each of the members in the body just as he's decided. If they were all the same member, where would the body be? So now there are many members, but one body. The eye cannot say to the hand, I do not need you. Nor in turn can the head say to the foot, I do not need you. On the contrary, those members that seem to be weaker are essential, and those members we consider less honorable, we clothe with great honor, and our unpresentable members are clothed with dignity. But our presentable members do not need this. Instead, God has blended together the body, giving greater honor to the lesser members, so that there may be no division in the body, but the members may have mutual concern for one another. If one member suffers, everyone suffers with it. If a member is honored, all rejoice with it. Now you are Christ's body, and each of you is a member of it. We hear the voice of God through these words. Thanks be to God.
Thank you, Christopher, for that beautiful reading of a beautiful text. Right there is a full ecclesiology, which is a $10 word that means like, how do we do church? In that text right there, it's just beautiful. Everything we need to know about doing church together. So thank you for reading that. It means a lot. I really wanted you to be the one to read that to us, and you did a great job. I want to add to our consciousness this morning also a reading from the same author, but a separate letter he wrote to the same church later on down the road. And it's 2 Corinthians chapter 3, verses 17 and 18. So just a few verses here. And he says, now our God is the Spirit. And where the Spirit of our God is, there is freedom. And we, who with unveiled faces reflect our God's glory, we grow brighter and brighter as we are being transformed into that image that we reflect. And this is the work of our God, who is Spirit. We hear the voice of God in the reading of these sacred words. Thanks be to God. We are in the season of Epiphany, and it's become our tradition, as you know, to use this sermon time during this series to speak about different revelations or epiphanies that are meaningful to us these days. And this morning, what I want to talk about is why I still believe in church. Why I still believe in church. And there are plenty of reasons not to, but why I still believe in church. And borrowing from the text, I want to help us do some of the gazing that the Apostle Paul was just talking about in that reading I did. But first, before I get there, let me just tell a few quick stories of what makes it hard for me to believe in church. And I know you have, many stories of your own. And you continue to add to those stories, I'm sure. But let me add just kind of three obvious ones. And I'll start with a rather easy one. We have people like, and I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings here, but we have people like, for example, Mark Driscoll. And I will admit that somewhere floating around on the interwebs or on my computer hard drive, there is a picture of Mark Driscoll and me with arms locked from when he came to Austin during the 2000s, and he spoke at something, and I was there, and I dragged Heather with me, and I made us stay afterwards so we could get a picture with him. And I didn't get his autograph, but I do have a picture with him. And I used to think the world of him and his movement and his sense of conviction with which he engaged, his work and things like that. But then obviously, it was incredibly troubling as I began to come to awareness and wake up about how power was used in communities and in churches and in the world. And over the past, 15 or so years, watch his abuse of power and his overcommitment to patriarchal and hyper-masculinized interpretations of the Christian faith. I just began to think, man, I am done with this guy, and this is an incredible turnoff to ministry. But I realized I don't have to be like him, And then this past summer, I listened to a podcast series, perhaps you've heard of it, The Rise and Fall of Mars Hill. It's incredible, and it details the many abuses of power by Driscoll and the cultish nature of centralized religious power and how dangerous that is. And I'm not here this morning to take shots at him. I'm just here to kind of say his behaviors and those like him have caused a loss of trust in church for many. And I'm sure you've encountered your Driscolls during your time here. Here's a story that is a little bit more difficult. Jean Vanier. Any of you familiar with Jean Vanier and the L'Arche movement? So he was the founder and leader of L'Arche, this worldwide movement that founded communities where people of all abilities lived and worked together. It's beautiful, powerful, life-changing for so many. His application of the good news of Jesus was life-changing for me, the way he decided to apply it to real-world problems. And I remember where I was standing. You ever had one of those? You remember where you were. I remember where I was standing when I first heard him speak in an interview with Krista Tippett during an On Being episode. And I don't know how to describe what happened other than a continental size iceberg broke off of my frozen, rigid theology of exclusion and othering in a moment, and it floated out into the warm currents of spirit flowing boundaryless, and it became part of this global ecosystem of life. I just came alive as I listened to him speak, and it's really hard to overstate how much he influenced me. And then in 2020, after his death, allegations of abuse of power, and particularly sexual abuse surfaced. And after investigation, they were confirmed by the large leadership. And that was really hard for me because he was one of those spiritual giants for me. And so for these allegations to surface and be confirmed and all of that was really hard and really disillusioning. Thank you, David. I don't know if any of you are familiar with Jean Vanier, but that was tough. And let me bring it even closer to home. So in my own experience, a kind of third and final example here, my first role in ministry was as an intern at my hometown church during college. During all the summer breaks and the winter breaks, I was an intern there for the youth and college minister. And as far as I was concerned, Ray hung the freaking moon. I mean, he was incredible. He was a mentor. He was a friend. He was a surrogate dad to me in many ways. But there came this point in 2005, after we'd known each other for several years, when he wasn't returning any of my calls for a couple of weeks. And this was weird because even though I was away in college, Ray and I spoke every single week and we were really close. And so finally, I stopped trying to call his cell phone and I called the church office directly and I asked for him. And Mary, the church secretary, with unbearable reluctance in her voice, I can still hear it today. She said, Matthew, Ray doesn't work here anymore. And I hate to be the one to tell you this, but he's been fired for an inappropriate relationship with one of the youth. I mean, this absolutely turned my 22-year-old world upside down. You know, that was hard. That was really freaking hard. And I'm sure, again, you've had experiences like this that shake your trust in the community of church down to as deep as it possibly can go. You've had your own Driscolls and Jean Vaniers and Rays. And in fact, both Dorothy Day and St. Augustine are credited with saying something like, the church may be a harlot, but she's still my mother. And I get what they're saying there, but I think they slightly missed the mark. And it would have been more accurate to say that the church's leaders very often go cheap for pleasure and power. And that's something we've got to be aware of. But I know I'm speaking this morning to people that take the time to dial into a church service and attend church service in person often. And so we're still here for some reason. We have our reasons. And it's not just because we feel like we have to check the box. Yeah, that's actually the actual quote, but I was trying to church it up a little bit there. But yes, that's it. We're here for some reason. I want to talk about, why I'm still here. We don't just show up because we feel guilty if we don't, because we're way past that feeling of guilt about not going to church. Thanks be to God for that. So let me just share a few reasons. And like I did at my last Epiphany sermon, I believe a year ago, I had 6 points in it. So I'm going to have 6 very quick, brief points. And I want to run through those. So my first reason of why I still continue to go to church is because the church is this place where we can learn to live in the world as it is, while also learning to lean toward what could be. We hold these two things in tension. We have this, the church teaches us the realistic realities, sometimes ugly realities of what church is, but then also it gives us this vision and this hope for what could be. It helps us think and act non-dualistically and hold these two things in tension. I mean, the most obvious fact about Christianity is that our primary figure was murdered by those who wanted to hold on to power. And our most important book is full of stories of people who likewise did awful things, and it's incredibly descriptive of how messed up people can be. There's a reason Jesus tells his followers to be wise as serpents. The world can be a messed up place, but there's more to our life of faith than that. A healthy church community stands in stark contrast to the common ways of our society, and it makes us seem a little crazy, a little odd, a little weird. It's this prophetic witness of a different value system and a different reality where we strive not to just be a subset of society where all of society's pathologies are recreated. We don't want to do that. We don't want to recreate the pathologies of society where the rules of money and attraction and power rule. No, instead of recreating power dynamics here, we heal from them here. Here we are trained and equipped with new tools to change them. This is our microcosm. This is our small world where we practice new ways of being so that we can go out into the world as missionaries and live our lives out bearing good news for other through our lives. Here is where we practice leaning toward what could be. Here we lean into the concepts of resurrection and forgiveness and agape love and this inheritance of belonging by birthright, just by being born. I have the right to belong. And this notion of, behold, I am making all things new, like Jonathan sang about. Churches where we make these seemingly naive hopes into our highest virtues and values. Believe it or not, that's rare. Believe it or not, you don't get these themes on any news channel you're going to tune into, or the PTA, or the boardroom, or the playground. You're not going to encounter somewhere that holds these as the highest virtues and values: resurrection, hope, new life, forgiveness, agape love. This is the unique place where we take these things and make them the most important and say, let's drive toward this together. And of course, you don't have to go to church to do this. You can inculcate these into your small family and friend circle, and I hope you do, but there's something immeasurable about a larger community that says, okay, let's try to live these values and virtues together. This is collectivism at its best, where we say, let's embody virtues that the rest of society thinks are crazy, but we think would actually bring about the healing of the world. So that's my first reason. This is the place where we lean toward a different reality. My second reason that I believe in the church still, church is a powerful delivery system for physical, social, spiritual, and mental care. It's a powerful delivery system. You get bad news, illness, death, pain, loss, grief. Who do you call? Probably somebody in this community. And have you seen us rally around and care for one another? It is beautiful. Have you witnessed the work of the people in providing space for grief and joy? It is beautiful. I'll speak personally. Heather and I have lost 3 pregnancies, but we were never alone in that. You all were there. The church was there to catch us when our lives were in free fall. It was incredible. We had church. We have helped bury one another's loved ones. We have cried together. We have welcomed new life into the world together. We have sat together through long spiritual winters together. We have helped rebuild one another's internal worlds and made them flourish like this Garden of Eden. We are doing that for one another by God's Spirit and grace. We are doing that, and it's beautiful. I'll also remind you, the church was a main hub for the civil rights movement. I mean, I can point to stuff like that. And I often want to remind people that Dr. MLK was actually Reverend Dr. MLK. He was motivated by this deep faith that drove him, and the church was this hub for social change on such a massive scale. And not everyone who participated in the civil rights movement was religious, but I struggle to see how it would have had the same impact without the structures and paradigms of churches that were the heartbeat of their communities. And I'll just say lastly on this point, a good church also provides immeasurable amounts of mental health care. We just do. That's what we do. And in fact, for millennia before we had the idea of therapists, we had the church and clergy and church leaders and those who were shaped by this spiritual tradition who provided mental health care to one another. All right. Now, study after study has shown that the most effective aspect of mental health care isn't the techniques or the theories or coming to some new insight or lying on a couch and talking about how your parents jacked you up. No, that's not the most effective part of mental health care. The most important aspect of therapy has shown again and again to be the relationship between two people, the relationship between one who is giving care and one who is receiving care, that alliance of respect and responsiveness to needs and mutuality and vulnerability and collaboration and compassion and empathy and commitment and all of these things. This is the Bifrost Bridge that transports people into new worlds. There's a kind of a Marvel reference for you nerds out there. It's that relationship. And studies continue to show that it's the relationship that heals people. And these are also the things that we teach and we work to embody here in our community, our healthy relationships, providing physical, social, spiritual, and mental care to one another. And the church delivers that unlike any other organization can. So that's my second reason. I want to apologize. I'm not even looking at comments if you're commenting. So I'm just going to press on. I'll try to get to them in a little bit. Reason number 3, church is where we encounter the big issues in life, Issues like, what do I do with the fact that I will inevitably harm myself and I will harm others? What do I do with that? Here in church, we say, all right, we call that sin. When you rupture relationship with yourself and with others and with God, oh, we got a name for that. We can actually call that something, and we call that sin. And we can talk about how to heal from that, how to stop doing those crazy behaviors, how to repair those relationships and those ruptures. We can talk about the way Jesus did that and the way God calls us to do that. We address the big questions of, what do I do with this awareness that I have because I have a prefrontal cortex that my body's going to die one day, and yet I can't fathom complete non-being now that I've known life. What do I do with that? You know, we call this heaven, and we talk about how our being is wrapped up with God and God's eternal being. And so what happens with my body is not the end of me. And that's a mystery. And I don't speak with a lot of certainty about that because I don't know. It's wrapped up in the eternality of God's goodness. That's the best I can talk about it with right now, but we attend to this big question. Or what do we do with the fact that the world is so incredibly unjust at times? This, again, is the space where we wrestle with these massive questions. This is what we do for one another. Now, I could go onto Twitter and continually type in just BITFD, burn it down. Or I can participate in a community like this, where we wrestle with issues of injustice every week. Sometimes that leads us to lament with one another, and sometimes that leads us to strategize with how to engage it effectively and do what Jesus called us to do in his prayer. Let your kingdom come. Let your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. All right, let's move toward that. Let's lean toward that together. So church is where we encounter the big issues in life, and we accompany one another in responding to them. We're halfway there. Number 4, church is where we encounter the divine, the ultimate, the highest, and the holiness, the epitome of everything that we know to be capital G good and capital L life. Church is where we encounter God. Sure. Now, you can encounter God anywhere, right? We believe in omnipresence, all present. God is everywhere. But this is the one unique community in all of society where it's like that is our highest goal and our highest good. That is what we are seeking to help one another do together. Again, you're not going to get that in the PTA. You're not going to get that at a tech startup. You're not going to get that somewhere else. You're not going to get that on I-35, although all of those are places where you're going to certainly encounter people who think they're God, but you're not going to get to encounter the eternal God. You know what I'm talking about? This is a unique setting where we get to do that. And in a healthy church, all of our wannabe gods are dethroned, and our tendency to act like God it's unmasked as merely LARPing as a wannabe God. And our abuse of power is tempered by this sacred story we have of the God who was crucified. And oh my goodness, that completely shapes then what does power look like if God allows God's self to be crucified? Wow, that completely redefines how I use power if the all-powerful says I will be crucified, and it's through dying that I move toward resurrection and eternal life. Wow, that completely then reshapes how we use power. Church, though, also is this place where we encounter that one who says incredible life-giving things to us, like, who told you you were naked? Remember that question in the Garden of Eden? Who told you you were vulnerable and made you feel like that's a bad thing? What a beautiful life-giving question, questioning the premise that being naked and vulnerable is a bad thing, questioning the premise of maybe you shouldn't believe all the voices you hear out there in the world. Why don't you come back to me, who will remind you that you are beautiful, good, loved, accepted, and held, and this is the place you can be vulnerable is with me. Church is the place where we encounter the one who calls us by our truest names: child, beloved, new creation. Church is where we encounter the one who ever calls us toward life so abundant, we have to use words like eternal. Church is the beach that we gather on to contemplate the boundless ocean of goodness, feeling immeasurably small by it, and at the same time, part of it. Church is the only place in society where we get to encounter all of that. Reason number 5 of why I still believe in church, and I know I'm going long. It's a 6-point sermon. I should have known better, so I'll hurry along. Reason number 5: church is where we encounter others. Church, we don't just come here to meet with God. We come here to encounter others who are on that same journey. And believe it or not, our society is not really set up so as to facilitate respectful heart-to-heart connections between diverse groups. That may come as a surprise to you, but a healthy church is. I'll admit we're not there yet, but it's a goal of ours. A healthy church is a full ecosystem of diverse beliefs and approaches to life and philosophies. It is not monocultural. It is a full ecosystem. It is not where we cookie cut out what Christians should look like. And the leadership here at this church does not require strict adherence to a rigid set of dogmatic beliefs. And instead, we strive toward the image that the prophet Isaiah painted for us and that Jonathan sang about for us of this peaceable kingdom where the lion and the lamb, or the wolf and the lamb, lie down together. And to use some of today's language, it's the place where the capitalists and the socialists lie down together. It's the place where the libertarians and the anarchists and, everybody of every political stripe come together, where the patriots and the anti-patriots, where the hedonists and the stoics, where the fatalists and the existentialists, where this Noah's Ark full of species gather together to escape a flood. It is not monocultural. It is an ecosystem. It's like that reading that Christopher did for us a few minutes ago, where the text uses the image of body parts, completely different and yet belonging to one another. And I just want to say, as I conclude this point number 5, I don't want to name people specifically, but I know there are people here in this community who simply don't like each other. I know that. And let me just say, I'm glad you're both here. And my suspicion is that you actually need one another if you want to grow. And I hope we will never become a monocultural church. I hope we'll always be a full ecosystem church where there are people here who just don't like each other because, again, I know you need to encounter one another in your full humanity and divinity that you are. And in that encounter, you are going to grow and you are going to move toward who you are called to be in God. And church is that place where we hold that tension of encountering one another. And then lastly, my final point, that leads to my final point, reason number 6. Church is where we are committed to keep growing. That is what we do. we say we haven't arrived. We are still on the journey together. And the text I read from you, from the Apostle Paul, he's writing to this little church trying to figure out what it meant to live the way of Jesus and live committed to one another in a rather godless city. And in it, he writes these words where he says, as we gaze upon God's glory and we reflect on all these things, we are being transformed into God's image with ever increasing glory. We are constantly growing from glory to glory, constantly being transformed. And he says to them, look, we are on this trajectory of transformation and growth. We are headed somewhere. And that's probably why we were first known as the people of the way. We are on a journey. We are on the way. Now, we were planning this morning to do this service in person, right? And my plan for this part of the sermon, it was going to be so much fun. I was going to make everyone look around, and then I was going to say, I want you to take note of somebody that you have seen grow during your time in this community. And I want to make you uncomfortable, and I want to ask you right now to point at that person. Come on. That would have been fun, right? Imagine yourselves, who would you have looked at? Who would you have pointed at and said, I've seen that person grow, and it's been beautiful to watch? I want to invite you. I know you love commenting, so take a moment and chat it. Who have you seen grow in this community during your time here? Or maybe you want to claim how you've seen yourself grow during your time in this community, how you have grown in our collective vocation here in this community, our vocation of practicing love, of practicing resurrection, of living as if all of the false gods that we worship before are actually false, and following the living God. How have you seen yourself grow? I invite you to chat that as well. I want to celebrate that with you, because this is the place where we are always growing and always being transformed from glory to glory as we gaze upon God's glory. And so in conclusion, there you go. My 6 reasons for why I still believe in church. I'll admit that these are still more aspirational than they are actual. We aspire toward them. They are not actual yet, but we lean toward that. I'm sure people in this community have disappointed you. I'm sure I have disappointed you. I'm sure we will disappoint you at times, and I would invite you to reach out to me or whoever it is that's disappointed you. Have a dialogue about that so you and that other person can grow and move forward together and take that transformational journey. And it's a long journey, right? Just like it's taken me 15 years of a healthy marriage to Heather to rehabilitate my deeply wrong notions of what marriage and family are. It's taken 15 years of rehab for me with Heather. It's going to take many years and a long journey of us together to rehabilitate what church is and what it could be. But I'm excited to do that with you. And I've seen enough in these handful of years to be excited and to believe. And by God's grace, may we continue to stretch toward what it could be, continue to grow toward what it could be, and envision together that reality, gazing together upon what it could be. And as we do so, may we who with unveiled faces gaze upon God's glory be transformed into that beautiful image. Amen.
Hey everyone, I'm Trey, and thank you so much, Matt, for those words. I'm going to be doing our benediction, which is a poem by Thich Nhat Hanh called Walking Meditation. So I will read it for us, and then that'll be our benediction for today. So this is Walking Meditation. Take my hand. We will walk. We will only walk. We will enjoy our walk without thinking of arriving anywhere. Walk peacefully, walk happily. Our walk is a peace walk. Our walk is a happiness walk. Then we learn that there is no peace walk, that peace is the walk, that there is no happiness walk, that happiness is the walk. We walk for ourselves, we walk for everyone, always hand in hand. Walk and touch peace every moment. Walk and touch happiness every moment. Each step brings a fresh breeze. Each step makes a flower bloom under our feet. Kiss the earth with your feet. Print on earth your love and happiness. Earth will be safe when we feel in us enough safety. Thank you.